up, swashbucklers? You're listening to Under the Crossbones, episode number 183. My name is Phil Johnson. I'm your host for the show and the ship's TV remote control here for you each and every week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for telling your friends, visiting sponsors, sending donations, all that good stuff that you do that helps me keep the old boat afloat. I appreciate it. Here we are at episode number 183. Fun fact about the number 183. 183 Club is a Taiwanese boy band whose average height of the original 5 members combined together was about 183 centimeters. Now, here's the thing. 183 centimeters is about 6 feet. So that's a weird description, right? Their average height of the 5 members combined together, that's a weird statement. That makes it sound like they're each 1.2 feet tall. Now, they're Taiwanese, so it's possible. I'm kidding. I don't know. It's weird. I'm going to guess that each of them was approximately 6 feet tall, 183 centimeters, which makes every member of that Taiwanese boy band taller than I am. So there you go. All right. That's 183. My guest on the show today is Zachary Stocks. And Zachary is the Program Development Officer of the Grays Harbor Historical Seaport. And for our purposes here today, we are talking about the ship called the Lady Washington, which is a ship out here on the West Coast that makes its way up and down the West Coast, giving people sail trips and educational experiences and things like that. As for pirate cred, you have seen it in Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. You've seen it as Captain Hook's ship in the TV show Once Upon a Time, and in a bunch of other things, and we'll talk about that as we get into it too. Like last week, we had Nick on, co-hosting with me. We're going to do that again this week, and this week my co-host is Cheryl Jones. Cheryl is the host of the Movies Made Me podcast. And if you go back to episode 138 here of Under the Crossbones, you can hear Cheryl and I chopping it up about the British Navy, because she's an expert in that too. So 138, that's where you can hear Cheryl's original talk. Or if you go over to mmmpodcast.com, you can check out Movies Made Me, which I've done an episode of her show, so you can dig around and find that over there. That's a fun show. But today, Cheryl's going to co-host with me because she spent some time on the Lady Washington about 15 years ago as a crew member, and I thought it would be fun to have her point of view on the whole sitch here on the show today. So that's what we're doing. If you're joining the show, please join us over on Facebook, facebook.com/underthecrossbones, twitter.com/undercrossbones. Click that subscribe button. Just mash it with your finger in whatever you are listening to this on right now, and you can get the new episodes each and every week as soon as they drop on Tuesday morning. And it's just that easy. And of course, all the show notes for this episode will be at underthecrossbones.com/183. And I'll tell you what, I may need your help a little bit this week in promoting this episode. So if you could share this around to your friends, that would be super great, because I have a crazy, busy, weird kind of week coming up. On Tuesday, the day you're listening to this, if you're listening to it the day it comes out, my dad is going in for lung surgery. Yeah, so there's a little cyst on the upper part of his lung. It's not cancer. They already tested for that, so that's good. But my dad going in for the lung surgery, and that's going to be an ordeal. He's going to have to spend some time in the hospital recouping for 2-3 days after. So we're going to be dealing with that, taking care of my mom, doing that thing. I'm going to be doing a show Thursday night in Modesto at the Familia Bistro in Modesto, California, with my pal Miles Weber. So if you're in the Modesto area, come out and see us on the 28th. At the Familia Bistro, and my girlfriend's birthday is on Friday, so lots of stuff happening. I'm supposed to take her to San Francisco for her birthday, because for some reason she likes going to San Francisco. Not my place, but it's her birthday, so we're probably going to shop and eat, and that's what we're going to do up there. And it's her birthday, and I'll tell you this, because she doesn't listen to the show, I got her Warriors tickets for her birthday, because my girlfriend, big old giant Golden State Warriors fan. In our house, she watches basketball, and I cook dinner. So that's how we are. That's how we are here in my house. I was thinking last night, I was like, if a guy is watching football or something, right? And maybe the lady wants his attention, and she'll go lose some clothing and then stand in front of the TV. Now, when that happens, a guy will consider turning the TV off. if his lady is standing there sans clothing in front of him, he will consider turning the TV off. Whether he actually does or not, I don't know, because I'm not that kind of guy. But I would definitely consider, right? If my girlfriend is watching basketball and I show up in front of the TV sans clothing, she would ask me when dinner's going to be ready. It's a double standard. I think it is. So anyway, we're going to go see the Warriors on Sunday, providing all goes well the rest of the week. And I wrapped it up in 1,000 different packages. I made it a tiny, tiny little piece of paper buried at the bottom. So it'll be fun to watch her unwrap it, too. Other shows coming up next week. On April the 4th, I will be at the Black Oak Casino in Tuolumne, California. On April the 5th, I'll be at Copyright in San Francisco, California. And on April the 6th, I will be at Slapface Coffee in Fremont, California. So you can get all the info on the tour dates and all that kind of good stuff at underthecrossbones.com. Click that tour dates button. It'll take you to where all the places I am going to be that I've got booked so far this year. And there's things coming up. Vancouver, we got Florida on there, and some other things. I'm getting my hustle on. There's a lot of California dates right now, though. We'll be filming my new comedy special soon too. That's happening in August in San Diego, probably. So keep an eye out for that. We haven't even officially announced that yet, but it's coming. We're sponsored today by TeePublic. TeePublic, what they do is they hook up with t-shirt artists, and they sell the artist t-shirts. And when you go buy a t-shirt, the artists get a cut. TeePublic gets a cut, and I get a cut for sending you over there. So it's real nice how it works. It's a win-win-win. And what I've done is curated over 100 super cool pirate t-shirts just for you to check out. And there are funny ones, there are scary ones, there are sexy ones, and I'll bet you need a new pirate t-shirt. Why? Because everybody needs a new pirate t-shirt, especially if you're listening to this show. So go to underthecrossbones.com/shirt. And right there, you can see the over 100 super cool pirate t-shirts that I have hand curated for you. Again, that's underthecrossbones.com/shirt. Go check it out. And if you would like to support the show in some other way, you can go to underthecrossbones.com/support. And right there's a little PayPal box that you can just drop a donation in of whatever amount you think is appropriate. There's an Amazon banner there. If you click that Amazon banner, you go buy yourself something nice at Amazon. Amazon kicks me back a few shekels. That helps me keep the old boat afloat, and I appreciate it. Or if you'd like to be a sponsor of the show, easy to do. All the information is right there on underthecrossbones.com/support. All right, let's do this. So let's get into my talk with Zachary Stocks. He's the Program Development Officer at the Grays Harbor Historical Seaport, where the Lady Washington is homed. Homed? I don't know if that's a correct ship term, but we're going to go with it. And my co-host, Cheryl Jones, host of the Movies Made Me podcast and subject of Under the Crossbones, episode number 138, about the British Navy. All right, let's dig in. Here you go.
I was just a 2-week volunteer, and I was only on for a week.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you didn't even finish your 2 weeks.
I didn't. No.
Oh no. Well, we owe you one. You'll have to come back aboard and finish your term.
No. Good Lord, no.
Well, that doesn't bode well.
No. I thoroughly, I loved doing the work. I just didn't like kind of the isolation. And there's a whole, I don't know, we'll see if it comes up, but there was a whole thing about that period of time. And so, yeah, it's not, I very much love the lady. So don't worry.
Okay.
So, Zachary, tell us a little bit about what you do for the organization. Now, the organization is called Grays Harbor Historical Seaport. Is that correct? You
got it. Yep. Grays Harbor Historical Seaport.
Great. And what is your actual position there?
So I have the title of Program Development Officer, but what that actually means is that I oversee all of the tall ship programs whenever we have guests aboard. So if you are a member of the public and you come onto the tall ships, either as a sailing guest who purchased a ticket, or if you're coming in for tours, if you are a parent or chaperone of a school field trip, or if you are chartering the vessel for a private event or some sort of a special outing with your corporate group you're with, all of those things fall under my purview. So if you're a member of the public and your experience on board the tall ship doesn't go smoothly, I'm the person that you should talk to, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out why that was.
All right, good. So all complaints directed at Zachary. That's
great. All right, I just really set myself up for that one, huh?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the Lady Washington and the history of this recreation of this ship and what that's all about.
So actually, this is Lady's 30th year. Her 30th birthday was back on March 7th.
Nice.
So she was built on March 7th, 1989 is when she first touched water on the Chehalis River in Aberdeen, Washington, which is our headquarters. Her keel was laid in 1987. So a group of dedicated volunteers and shipwrights worked on her for a couple of years to get her ready to be seaworthy. And then she made her first sail into the Puget Sound from Grays Harbor that same year. And she's been sailing the West Coast ever since, stopping at all ports where she can fit, basically, between British Columbia and the U.S.-Mexico border.
Cool. And tell me a little bit about the history of the ship. You don't have to go into the whole thing, but the history of the ship that it's based on.
So our Lady Washington is based off the original Lady Washington, which was the first American ship to make landfall on what is today the west coast of the United States. So she traveled as the smaller of the two vessels of Robert Gray's Voyage of Discovery, which set off from Boston to head to the Pacific Northwest in search of furs to trade to the Canton markets in China. And so as they were rounding Cape Horn, the much larger vessel, Columbia, was stuck in bad weather, and Lady actually went west first and was the smallest vessel at that time to ever go around Cape Horn. And she became the first American ship not just to touch the West Coast, but also to visit Japan, to visit Hawaii, and a few other places probably in East Asia.
Very interesting.
Can I just point out the thing that somebody right now is listening and wondering, yes, the Columbia at Disneyland is sort of a recreation of the Columbia that the lady sailed
That's
with.
correct.
Oh, I didn't even make that connection. Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, there used to be an exchange when the lady when the crew was in town at Christmas time. They'd be down here in Southern California, and they would get. There was a guy at Disneyland who worked as part of the Columbia crew. He would sign them into the parks. They'd go aboard the Columbia, kind of show them what it would be like if they were really sailing that ship, and then the crew of the Columbia would come out and take an actual sail on the Lady Washington and get to see what it's like for real. So
right, because the Columbia is just on a rail, isn't it?
Yeah, it travels on a track.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So, the pirate cred in this case for the Lady Columbia. Now I'm getting all confused. The Lady Washington is that it's probably best known to pirate fans as the HMS Intrepid. Is that right? In Curse of the Black Pearl.
Interceptor.
Oh, see, I'm all messed up today.
Yes. The ship they
steal. Right. Okay, nice. So tell me a little bit about then the movie, the TV, the Hollywood appearances that the ships have made.
So obviously, like you said, best known for Pirates of the Caribbean. We were in The Curse of the Black Pearl, but we've actually crafted some pieces for the first 3 Pirates movies. We also appeared in Star Trek Generations. That movie sort of begins with a scene where all the members of that from the Next Generation crew are aboard our vessel, and it's called the Enterprise. And I think there's a scene where they throw Worf off the plank, and so that all of your favorite Star Trek fans have been on board. And then we've done a lot of different TV productions. We had a recurring role in ABC's Once Upon a Time, which was shot up in Richmond, British Columbia. So we did that for a few seasons. And chances are, if you're watching, a documentary on the History Channel or Discovery Networks, and you see a tall ship and it's an American show, it could be us in that production, because we've worked with a lot of TV documentary series on pirates and on about exploration and maritime. And we've also done a lot of music videos. We were in a music video just this past summer for this group called For King and Country, is a contemporary Christian group. There's a scene in that where they blow up the boat. It's all just movie magic, though. And we were in Macklemore's Can't Hold Us video. So that's been seen over 1 billion times, I think. So probably as many people have seen us from that music video as have seen us in some of our feature films.
That's interesting. The considering that Curse of the Black Pearl is supposed to take place in the golden age of piracy, so early 1700s, but this is a late 1700s ship. Did they make any sort of modifications to it to make more period correct, or did Disney just say, we don't care really?
I don't think they made corrections to it to make it look more authentic, but they made a lot of changes to the appearance of the vessel just to fit the aesthetics of the movie. So they painted it. And so when you look at it in the film, you'll see that it's quite dark. Whereas, the colors that we have today, which are the original colors of the vessel, are very bright. So it's not immediately recognizable to a lot of people who have seen our boat before. But other than that, we had some props built for staging, and our vessel, Lady Washington, is steered by a tiller, but in the movie, she's steered by a wheel. So we had to build this elevated platform that hid the tiller, and then we put a prop wheel in place to make it look a little bit more like what people think about when they think of sailing ships.
Right. It's not a pirate ship without a giant ass wheel.
Right.
Right. Which is actually progressing it rather than regressing it. So they didn't make it look older. They made it look newer by doing that.
The original Lady Washington went through quite a few sort of retrofits and changes and things like that. So which version of that original ship is the current reproduction? That's
a good question. So the vessel as it appears, if you were to go visit it today, is how it looks after a second mast was added. Probably, who knows what year that was. We're not really sure, but it was after Captain John Kendrick basically pirated the boat himself, commandeered it, and decided not to return to Boston. So the original Lady was a sloop. It just had a single mast with a fore and aft sail, and then some triangle sails at the front. But they added the second mast, which is how our vessel looks today. But yeah, that's an interesting story about John Kendrick.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. The short version.
Sure. So yeah. So John Kendrick was the most senior captain from that first voyage in 1787 that left Boston. And he was traveling with Robert Gray, who is probably the much more famous person in American history now. So Gray was captaining Lady Washington, and Kendrick was captaining the Columbia. But once they got to the Pacific Northwest, for whatever reason, they decided that they would switch, and John Kendrick would take command of Lady Washington and continue looking for furs up around the coasts of what is today British Columbia. And Robert Gray would return with what they already had to Boston. Well, they did that, but John Kendrick never went back. He basically just took this boat and used it as his personal trade vessel and made back and forth voyages between the West Coast and East Asia for the next 8 years or so until he was killed in Hawaii, similar to Captain Cook. But the Lady Washington never returned to Boston. She made her trip to the Pacific Northwest and then sunk probably sometime around 1790. I think 1793 is what we say, in the Philippines.
Interesting. And it was taken out in a storm, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I think is really interesting about the whole project is that you do have these sort of volunteer crews that go out on the Lady Washington and the other ship that I can't think of the name of at the moment. You would think I have notes in front of me.
Hawaiian
Thank
Chieftain.
you. I have notes right next to me. So the Lady Washington and the Hawaiian Chieftain, they have these volunteer crews that go out for, I guess it's 2 weeks at a time or so. Tell me a little bit about the process of how you bring those people into the fold. And Cheryl, you can jump in on this too, since you have experience on the other end of it.
Yeah, so people can reach out to us at any time. A lot of folks come aboard for tours and just say, this is incredible. How can I do what you do? Talking to our crew. And, our program is open to anyone over age 16. It's called 2 Weeks Before the Mast, which is a reference to Richard Dana's famous book, 2 Years Before the Mast. And basically it's a crash course in traditional maritime. So you come aboard and you pay for a bunk and all of your meals. And during those 2 weeks, we'll teach you all the things that you would need to know to have sort of an introductory knowledge about what traditionally rigged 18th century sailing vessels look and function like, while you serve as a member of our crew, helping to sail the vessel, helping to educate the public, teach school kids, assist guests during tours. So it could be a working vacation, or it could just be a retreat for you. I mean, people have a different experience depending on where they come aboard or what they hope to get out of it. But that is sort of the way that we begin everybody's experience on the vessel. And if you love it and you want to stick around and, have tall ship life the rest of your life, then we can help you do that. And we'll give you a spot in a long-term volunteer capacity, and you can serve as a regular member of our crew.
I know some people who've done that, who've kind of made this their life for a number of years. When I came aboard, it was 2004, did I say? And I still have the training documents that they gave me when I came on board, which of course was, now you have a program, from what I understand, where there's an online learning element prior to coming aboard, which sounds amazing because I got handed a huge crew book when I stepped on board. And luckily I already knew some of this because I trained on the ships at the LA Maritime Institute a little bit, but yeah, so what does that new training module kind of consist of?
Yeah, we're really excited about it. So we have a new professional training program, which is called the Seafarer Collective. And the way that TSC works is that there are a few different modules you can select depending on what kind of relationship you want to have to maritime. So we have programs that are designed and Coast Guard certified for people who are already experienced sailors who are hoping to find a low-cost way to get some additional training and then take tests to go off and start working on commercial maritime vessels. We have other programs ready to get people enrolled in ordinary seaman's credentials so that they can start working in maritime capacities. And then we have, a recreational program, which is really sort of the feeder for our 2 weeks before the mast. So the way that it works is that we enroll students into the program online, and they have sort of a classroom mentor who supports them while they're learning some of the foundational knowledge that they need, so that as soon as they step onto the boat, they already have enough prior knowledge to be able to start helping out, rather than coming on board and learning everything while also having the responsibilities of being a member of the crew and no prior knowledge. So it's made it easier for us to operate the vessels while also giving a feather in our cap about our ability to provide real maritime training for a workforce that is desperately looking for work.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, and it was being aboard, I enjoyed doing the work. I left after a week, but that had more to do with sort of realizing I don't really like sailing that much. So, but I loved, and doing that kind of helped me focus on where I belonged in the maritime world, because I realized that the thing that I loved was the dockside tours. And I would take, like, the people who were long-term volunteers who were aboard while I was there really were like, it's not our favorite part. And so I would just say, hey, you stay in the hold, I'll take your shift. And I would just work, double shifts on the dockside tours because I so loved sharing the vessels and their history and just, what it was like sailing on them with the public. And I didn't even have the kind of knowledge that I do now about, historically about that. But I think, it's really great to have these vessels, one, that you can go aboard and learn how to do this and learn what it's like, but also that there are so many different types of opportunities for the public to come aboard, besides taking school children out for educational tours on it. You do the dockside tours, you can go out for, 3-hour battle sails or adventure sails. And I always, every year when the ladies down here in Southern California, I try to encourage people to do that. I can't often get people to do it, but once they do, though, people really get excited when they're aboard those vessels.
Has that new training program, how much of a difference has that made in the numbers of people that maybe either stick around for the whole 2 weeks or then do go on and become more of a full-time volunteer?
Well, I would say about 90% of people stick around for the full 2 weeks anyway. I mean, for a lot of folks, I mean, whether they come in with no prior experience or with a ton of prior experience, this is something they've been looking forward to for a long time. And, we have waiting lists for people that want to take part in that program. But the Seafarer Collective has just really added to our capacity to be able to really support the people who are, paying for this experience by giving them something that actually has value. Because, not to knock the program as we've had it before, but, we want people to come on board and feel like they're paying to really learn something. And it's great to have a vacation on a tall ship, but, we have a responsibility to our public to provide them with, quality interpretive or educational experiences, and to the people that are coming aboard as volunteer crew to provide them with, new knowledge and, new opportunities to envision themselves in their relationship to maritime and to the ocean. So the Seafarer Collective is really our way of being able to professionalize the offerings that we have, which ultimately is going to be more sustainable for our organization and lead to better experiences for the public.
Nice.
And that was, for me, that was one of the things that caused me to leave, was because, and again, this was 15 years ago. And from everything I've seen, I'm still on all the email lists, for Lady News. Mm-hmm. Everything has advanced so much and become so much more organized in those 15 years. And so the problem when I came aboard was the Hawaiian Chieftain was on the East Coast at that time. And so it was the Lady and the Bill of Rights when I was aboard. And we had enough crew available to make a full complement on one vessel, but we were split between two. So we were very short-handed, and there weren't opportunities. Like, I already knew the basics of how to sail, but I didn't, because we were so short-handed, there wasn't an opportunity for anyone to really help me learn anything additional. So that's, I know that now you're so much more organized with it, and with having enough crew that I think it would be a way better situation. Like if someone like me were to come aboard now, there'd be so much more opportunity to really learn more while you're there, mm-hmm. which would make it a really more interesting experience and something that would make you want to stay longer.
Yeah. And hopefully you'll do a lot of that learning before you arrive online, yes. so that you can come in and immediately be able to know some knots, to jump into docking procedures, to have a foundation in sail theory. And so your 2 weeks on board will be spent doing the practical application of what you've been learning for the past 2 weeks at home, with the support of the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
That's really good to know. How long is that waiting list? So if somebody jumped in today and said, hey, I want to do this, how long would they have to wait?
Oh, it's not too long. And it depends on what port you want to start, because some places are more popular than others just because they might be, bigger communities. So we probably are most popular in the San Francisco Bay area.
Sure.
So Oakland is one of our biggest ports. Monterey has emerged as a really big port for us. And then the Puget Sound area, Kirkland, Seattle area are really big for us. So if you live in those areas and you want to do 2 weeks, it might be challenging just because there's a lot of folks that want to come in at that time. But maybe that would just be an opportunity to look and say, where can I drive an hour and join the crew? And then submit an application for one of those ports as your starting port.
Nice. Good tip. Let's talk about you a little bit, Zachary. Tell us about your background. Have you done the 2 weeks on the ship, and how'd you get into your position?
I did do the 2 weeks, but that's not how I got my position. I got my position, and then I had to go do the 2 weeks.
Okay.
That was one of the conditions of the job. It was really critical when I got hired that there was a strong relationship between the office-based staff and our shipboard staff, because the crew in the office, obviously communication is critical, but it's difficult sometimes to bridge that knowledge gap between what the day-to-day work looks like for our sailors and what the responsibilities of our office-based team that has to schedule the programs and do the communications and marketing. So our director said, if you're going to take this job, we think it's really essential that within a month of being hired, you go and you spend 2 weeks just as a member of crew, not doing anything else, no emails, not worrying about other responsibilities. Just go see what it's like to be a sailor, because that's going to inform the work that you do. And it definitely did. So I'm really glad that I had a chance to do that. I'm still a terrible sailor, but at this point, I've spent probably about 35 to 40 nights on the vessel in the past couple of years. So that's pretty fun.
What was your experience like in doing that? What were the parts you liked and the parts you didn't like?
There weren't many parts that I didn't like, to be honest. I thought it was pretty fun. I'm not afraid of heights, so I really liked going aloft. I thought it was great to get to climb 90 feet up and, unfurl a flag halyard, or get to be out on the ocean for the first time. Really, the only boats I had ever been on, I think I'd been on a cruise ship, which is totally incomparable. It's not the same thing at all. So that was kind of just sort of like being in a new world. And it was also the first time I ever went to California. So, I mean, just getting to travel a little bit, it really is a pretty special experience. And so I took to it right away.
Nice. Are you a Washington guy originally or somewhere else?
No, I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Virginia. But I was living in Seattle when I got hired. And now I live and work from my home office in Astoria, Oregon. Nice little maritime community on the coast.
And Goonies connection.
Yeah. Actually, I can see the house. The Goonies house is right out my back deck.
Oh, really? No kidding.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Astoria is a great little town, and also the site of one of the worst shows I ever had in my life.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was. I so wanted to like that town. I did one show there, and the audience was absolutely horrible to us. And I haven't been back since, unfortunately. But
Oh, sorry to hear that.
That was a long time ago. That's cool. That's cool. So were you a maritime-y guy at all before this job, or what was your background like?
My background is in 18th century museum interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah. So being from Virginia, colonial history is kind of what we have. So I remember with my dad going to Colonial Williamsburg when I was a kid and just thinking, probably 7 or 8 years old, wow, I really want to work here. And so I went to the College of William and Mary. So I got to intern at Colonial Williamsburg, and I did that for a year. And all of my studies were about museum studies and how do we teach people about history while also allowing opportunity for them to participate in it, citizen archaeology and things like that. And so I studied museum studies, and I was living on the West Coast. And I realized, boy, now that I've got the accreditation to back up my my career pursuits that I want to go into, where can I find some 18th century work on the West Coast? And it's pretty limited. But then I found the tall ships, and it was sort of like, it's kind of a miracle.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's kind of the only place to do that, really. I mean,
in Washington State, yeah, just about.
Well, even down here, there's not a ton. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't think of much at all. Anything in California, you're looking at 1800 plus,
or much earlier.
Yeah.
The history of
or way earlier. Yeah. So if somebody wants to find out more about the Lady Washington and where it's going to be or how to get involved or any of that kind of good stuff, where is the best place for them to go do that?
Definitely on our website. So it's historicalseaport.org. And from the homepage, there's a top tab that says tickets. And when you click that, it gives you a list of all of our upcoming ports with dates attached. And then you can select the port that you want to go and visit the boats in. And from there, it'll tell you all the programs that we have in that town.
Oh, great. While I'm thinking of it, tell us a little bit about the battle sails and adventure sails. We mentioned them a little bit earlier.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah. They're awesome.
Yeah, they're a ton of fun. So our standard program is our adventure sail. It's 2 hours out on the water on one vessel. So you buy your ticket and you hop aboard either Lady Washington or Hawaiian Chieftain. And you get to go sailing, enjoying the sights and sounds of the local waters of that town. You can sing shanties with the crew. We'll help you set some sails, and we'll haul lines together. And maybe get a little quick history lesson from our program coordinator. It's just a fun way to have an outing on the water with friends and family. The battle sails are for a slightly more raucous crowd, I'd say. Folks that are, I guess, a little more into the thrill seeking. Both boats will go out and go sailing together, and we'll fire the cannons at one another as we try to get as close as we possibly can so that you can see the whites of each other's eyes and have lots of cheers and jeers. So instead of singing, we do more yelling.
And when you first come aboard, the guns on the vessels, they look small, but they are powerful and they're loud and they're awesome.
Yeah. There's they are real black powder cannons. So those deck guns are loud and they surprise people. We always tell folks, please, use your fingers, plug your ears. And sometimes folks don't believe us. And then after we fire it once, they realize that we meant business, and they'll put their fingers in the air after that.
I'm picturing it in port at Redwood City. I think I'm seeing it in Redwood City or Oakland or something next week. And I'm just picturing the cannons going off and just rattling the windows of the car dealership that's right there.
They did that. I went out for a sail one time just as a passenger in Ventura, and when we came into Ventura Harbor, there they shot one of the guns off and set off all the car alarms in the parking lot. It was fantastic. And they would do in Long Beach. In Long Beach, there was a certain spot as we passed the Queen Mary. There was a certain spot they would try to hit where it would echo like through the Queen Mary and off the ship, and it was really cool.
Long Beach is a fun place to sail, just because it's really interesting to have the boat out in the middle of such a dense urban environment. I think that it's always a real thrill for guests to get to be on the boat in a place where you get to sort of have that juxtaposition between the old world and the modern world side by side.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I used when I got thrown into teaching one of the classes, one of the sections with students, and I was telling them about trade and things like that. And so, and there was a container ship nearby. So I used that as an example to say, this ship in its time was like that ship today, where it's much smaller, but it's carrying goods and taking them to another part of the world to sell those goods. And so, and they kind of, I think they kind of got it at that point. We're like, oh yeah, okay.
I actually say the same things. I tell the kids that, when I don't get to teach the kids very often since I don't spend much time on the boats, but when I do, I like to tell them that, you see these container ships and you think about the role that Lady Washington played in American history. And she sort of kicked off a trade with China that continues to this day, on the waters. So when you see these container ships that are going back and forth carrying manufactured goods, we were carrying the raw materials of the time to China and bringing back, hard currency that we could use to stimulate our economy. It's really not all that different.
I have to ask one more question, though. Does the crew still wear funnies? I couldn't tell from the information online.
So we only wear funnies for special events, or sometimes historical reenactments or film charters. Otherwise, we have crew uniforms, which our crew stressed was a really critical part of maintaining a professional appearance consistent with other educational vessels across the country. And so that was actually one of the things that a lot of crew were intimidated. They didn't necessarily want to come and work on our boats because they didn't understand if we were, playing pirate or being silly, or if we were going to be treated like real sailors. And so we made the decision to move fully to crew uniforms. And I'm a little uncertain about it because, I come from the world of costume and interpretation. So I understand the impact of the funnies.
Yes.
Yeah.
They made for great photos, and I, of course, being the person that I am, I have to buy, I bought all my own gear.
Oh, did you?
I actually came up with my own set of funnies that I brought with me. Yes, I still have them, but I haven't been on a sail in quite a while, but I would miss that a little bit, but the reasoning makes good sense.
Yeah. And we'll never turn anyone away just because, they're whatever they're wearing. So if you want to come to your funnies, that's great. And we'll love talking about it. And, we still have all of our period costumes on the vessel. So from time to time during dockside tours, we might pull some of those things out and let our guests get to try those on, which is something that we didn't used to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, explain to this landlubber what funnies are.
I was waiting for you to ask
Cheryl,
that.
do you want to explain?
Sure. The funnies are back when I sailed on the Lady, the crew wore, that's what they called them because they were funny looking clothes, and it was basically an 18th century style clothing. I can't say anything was 100% authentic, but it was pretty close, so that the crew looked the part of sailors in the era while we were working. And yeah, so we didn't, like, if you go anywhere else, you go down to San Diego, anywhere like that, and go out on one of their vessels, everybody's in a matching t-shirt, and, you know, there is a uniform like what the lady's doing now. But yeah, I really enjoyed that part just because it gave a hint of sort of authenticity to the era.
Oh, yeah, I can see how people would be a little wary of, like, do I have to get in the weird get-up to do this?
Right,
Can I just go sailing?
I was the oddball who was like, yeah, I can't wait.
Very nice. Well, thank you both for your time today. Is there anything that I forgot to mention that we should know?
I don't know. I mean, so the vessels are making their way north right now from California. Pretty soon, we're going to be, like you mentioned, heading to Redwood City. And after that, up to the San Francisco Bay. And then we've got a festival after that in Eureka. So if you are a California listener, those are your last chances to come and visit the tall ships before fall. And if you are further points north, then please look forward to coming and visit us in Coos Bay, Oregon, or in Oahu, Washington, Puget Sound, and even in Canada this year. We're going back to Richmond, BC.
Very nice. And if you're on the East Coast, you got your own damn ships. Go play with those.
Right. You all can come.
That's
come
right.
Join the crew.
You've got too many.
All right. Thank you very much for both of you. I appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
And there it is, friends. That is my talk with Zachary Stocks of the Grays Harbor Historical Seaport about the Lady Washington, and Cheryl Jones sitting in with us there. Cheryl was nice enough to send me some photos. She sent me a photo of the crew guide that she was talking about, the thick old crew guide that she got during her trip on the ship. And so we have a picture of that in the show notes. Plus, she sent me some pictures of the ships themselves back in 2005 or so, 4 or 5. And so those will be in the show notes. And I took a trip out to the ship myself just this past Friday to take some pictures myself. So there's pictures from current, there's pictures from 2005. Here was the funny thing. I kind of went out there looking to maybe get some additional interviewage with one of the crew members out there. And I went down into the hold where they got the little gift shop, and there were a couple of crew members down there, and they introduced themselves. They said, hey, if you got any questions, let us know. And I said, yeah, cool. I said, by the way, I'm putting out a podcast about this ship next week, and it's called Under the Crossbones. And they said, oh, that's right. Yeah, we heard something about that. And they said, what's the podcast about? And I said, pirates. And they went, pirates. And so I did not proceed to interview them because they did not sound particularly enthused about talking about pirates. So I just took some pictures and I checked out the ships, and I went on my merry way, which, as it turned out, was just fine, because if I'd have spent any longer there, I would have been late for the show I was trying to go to in Santa Cruz. So it all worked out because the traffic was horrendous getting from Redwood City to Santa Cruz. If you're from the Bay Area, if you're in California and you know those two cities, they're not that close together, and it took quite a long time. If you are listening in the middle of Texas right now and you have no idea where Redwood City or Santa Cruz are, rest assured, they're quite far apart. Anyway, you can get all the pictures and all that kind of good stuff in the show notes at underthecrossbones.com/183. Did you want to chip in on the conversation somewhere? Tell us something that you might know or had a question about, or whatever that may be. Come join us over on Facebook, facebook.com/underthecrossbones. You'll see a thread for the episode there, and you feel free to chip in your 2 cents, because we would like to hear it. If you'd like to find out more about the Lady Washington and all the stuff they're doing at the Grays Historical Seaport, you can go to historicalseaport.org. That's historicalseaport.org. And right on there, they have the sailing schedule and where you can get tickets for the adventure and battle cruises and all that kind of good stuff. And there's a direct link to that in the show notes. If you just click on the cover art, you should be able to see that link right there. You can also find Zachary Stocks on Twitter at Museumorphosis. Museumorphosis. I'm going to spell that. It's Museum Orphosis. So it's like museum and then ORPHOSIS. At Museumorphosis on Twitter. That's Zachary's handle on there. And, of course, link in the show notes. If you want to find out more about what Cheryl Jones is up to and listen to her Movies Made Me podcast, go to mmmpodcast.com. And if you would like to hear Cheryl Jones talk about the British Navy in depth with me here on Under the Crossbones, go to underthecrossbones.com/138. We are, of course, sponsored today by Pirate Radio, the Treasure Coast, WKKC-DB, playing the best music of today's hits and yesterday's classics, and Pirate Radio Talk, playing the best pirate shows, including Under the Crossbones, 24/7, all commercial free. To listen, just go to pirateradioTheTreasureCoast.com or hit your favorite app store and pick up the Pirate Radio WKKC-DB app. Or for the talk station, if you're a talky kind of person, go to pirateradiotc.com or get the Pirate Radio Talk app from your favorite app store. You can also ask your Alexa device or your Google device to play Under the Crossbones or Pirate Radio, the Treasure Force. My mouth fell apart. What happened? Pirate Radio, the Treasure Coast. That's what I meant to say. You can ask your Alexa device or your Google device. If you just go, okay, Google. See, it'll do it right there for you. And then I have to turn it off when it does that. All brought to you by iTreasure Radio, the very best digital media from independently owned stations at iTreasureRadio.com. I've got a free ebook for you. It's The Pirates of Panama or Buccaneers of America by Alexander Exquemelin. It's under both titles out there in the world. Originally published in 1678. So right there in pirated golden age kind of time, Alexander Exquemelin was a doctor who ended up on pirate ships, wrote a book about his adventures on said pirate ships, and you can get a nice ebook version of it for free at underthecrossbones.com. Click the ebook link, and it'll be right there. That is our show for today, kids. Thank you once again for tuning in. I absolutely appreciate it. Again, go check out all the websites, the historicalseaport.org, where you can find out where the ships are going to be and where you can take a ride on them. Hit up Zachary Stocks on Twitter at Museumorphosis. Go find Cheryl Jones on her podcast at mmmpodcast.com. That's the Movies Made Me podcast. And hit up episode 138 if you want to hear me and Cheryl talking about the Royal British Navy. And coming up next week, Bradley Howard of the Pirates Royale is going to be on. Bradley Howard and the Pirates Royale have been playing pirate music at festivals since hundreds of years ago. Maybe not quite that much, but they've been around for quite a long time, and we had a really, really great talk. Super fun. You're going to enjoy it. Week after that, we're going to talk to Sam Conniff, who is the author of Be More Pirate. And it is an entrepreneur change the world kind of book. And I've seen people try and use a pirate analogy and those kind of things before. Nobody has done it with the depth of knowledge and well thought out thoughts as Sam Conniff. That wasn't a well thought out thought on my part, but you get the idea. He really did a good job with it. And so you can go to BeMorePirate.com if you want to check that out. But Sam Conniff, the author of that book, will be on the show in just 2 weeks. And of course, if you have any guest suggestions, I would love to hear them. You can hit me up at phil@underthecrossbones.com and for whatever you want to talk to me about the show, and that would be great. And so I will see you next week. I'll let you know how the surgery goes. Do whatever your version of putting some good vibes out in the universe for my dad is, and that would be helpful. And also, if you could share this week's episode to a few friends, that'll take a little bit off my plate while I'm dealing with helping my dad and my mom and the girl's birthday and the show in Modesto. It's going to be a crazy week, kids. All right? I'll see you next time.